Anyone following the murders of the 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho last month has by now heard the name John or Jack Showalter, also known as the food truck guy, who was initially dismissed as a suspect by investigators. There's been a renewed interest in Jack lately as a possible suspect for a number of reasons. So what I wanted to do was go back to the original Twitch live video stream and analyze his behavior and point to some key elements about him that make him stand out as someone that law enforcement may want to be taking a closer look at. So a little background on Jack Showalter. He is a former member of the Delta Tau Delta fraternity, which is very close in proximity to the Alpha Phi sorority house near campus. Obviously, Alpha Phi is the sorority that Kaylee was a member of. It's clear that Jack Showalter knew Madison. They followed each other on Instagram, Madison being Madison Mogen, the girl that Kaylee was seen with on the Twitch live video stream. So we know that there's a connection there. Rumor has it that Jack Showalter was recently kicked out of his fraternity, and there's some speculation as to what he was doing with the girls that night at the food truck. So let's go back and look at the video and break down what's happening as it's happening to try to figure out whether or not this is somebody that we need to be seriously considering. Okay, so at the 3:43:02 mark, Kaylee, Madison, and Jack approach the food truck. So that is Madison in the black jacket and the pink shirt, and Kaylee's in the gray sweatshirt. And you can see Jack behind them tips his hat, and then he puts his hoodie over his head and just kind of lingers. And he's going to linger back there the entire time the girls are ordering their food. Madison sees someone she knows in a sports jersey, goes over and gives him a hug. Kaylee's looking over and continues her process of trying to pay for the food. Meanwhile, Jack is just kind of lingering, and Madison comes back, stumbles over. You can see she's not doing too well in terms of staying light on her feet, kind of stupering. She kind of glances over at Jack. Jack looks like he's looking down at his phone, and this goes on for a short while. There, the Jersey guy appears to chat with a couple other girls, and another guy shows up in a tank top. There, okay, so now Madison walks back first to the Jersey guy. Kaylee follows, and then here comes Jack. Jack kind of lingers over, saunters over, and you can see now he's kind of hovering next to the girls. It looks to me like he's just kind of there to keep an eye on them. Pretty harmless, actually. He doesn't try to approach them. It really just looks like he's observing. I know that there's been some speculation that he was maybe contacted by the other Jack, Kaylee's boyfriend, apparently, to keep an eye on the girls. So that could be what's going on here. Not quite clear. There's a heavy-set guy right there with a hat on. That's Joe. And so Joe, you'll see in a short while here, does actually have a conversation with Jack. You can see they're kind of next to each other. And he was later interviewed by the Daily Mail to give his thoughts on whether or not he felt Jack was a suspect. I'll link to that in the description as well. Okay, so now Joe's kind of hanging there. The girls are kind of off to the side, kind of minding their own business. They're still talking with the Jersey guy. It looks like Kaylee is talking to somebody else, and Jack is still lingering, kind of looking left, looking right. Seems to be engaged in a conversation with somebody. Madison is still kind of leaning against the truck there, and you can see Jack again just kind of hovering. Yeah, Jack really appears to just kind of be waiting here. I don't know what exactly he's waiting for. Now Jack starts to talk to Joe, and he's actually looks like he's referencing the girls, kind of waves his hand. They're going back and forth. Looks like they're having a cheerful conversation. The girls seem to be ignoring what's going on. And then Jack does this strange bow down gesture. Not really sure what that means. Him and Joe are definitely chatting it up. Madison's just kind of lingering. Kaylee's looking down at her phone. Kaylee aggressively turns away from them towards Madison. Looks like she's whispering something to her. And Jack and Joe continue to have this ongoing conversation. And there it looks like they kind of, Joe puts his hand on Jack's back. They're laughing it up. There's really nothing suspicious at all here about Jack's behavior at this stage. He seems jovial, and he's probably telling Joe what Joe said in the interview, which is that he was there to keep an eye on the girls and clearly referenced how drunk they appeared to be.
How many apples in the Mac of the week? 0, TJ.
Now you can see Madison is just kind of moving around. Kaylee continues to look at her phone. People are coming up and giving their tickets to get their food or their drinks. Jack and Joe are still chatting it up. And this all looks very innocent. There's really nothing here to indicate any kind of suspicious activity or that Jack was doing anything to bother the girls. I mean, they're not interacting with him, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have permission to be there, at least from my perspective.
Order 83. Perfect. Thank you.
We're waiting for the food. People are coming up and getting theirs. It's really kind of ominous to know that these are the last minutes of these girls' lives, because shortly after this they will go back to their house, and then, as we all know, they'll be met with a terrible fate. And so what investigators and all the web sleuths are trying to do is see if there's anything they can glean from these final moments to determine what could have happened or who may have done what they did. Okay, now it looks like Kaylee was puffing from a vape pen or something. Or that could have just been cold air, actually. It looks pretty cold, and you can see other smoke or air coming out of people's mouths. It's hard to tell.
For donuts, yes.
Girls are still waiting for their food. Obviously, Jack and Joe spent a lot of time talking, so I am sure if there was anything suspicious, Joe would have reported it. Now, whether or not Joe is being considered a suspect, nobody really knows. But frankly, I'm not too concerned with any of what I'm seeing here at this stage. And there you can see Madison, again, banging into the truck, clearly heavily intoxicated. Jack just kind of stands erect, looks like he's waiting. Madison slams her hands up on the truck, probably getting impatient. Jack's pointing. One thing that's interesting is the way that Joe and Jack appear to be not only observing the girls, but also like now they're interacting, and you can see it looks like maybe Madison is getting somewhat defensive. She's pointing her finger right in Jack's direction. So that's interesting. And Joe's laughing. So you can only imagine the things that were being said here. At this point, only Jack and Joe know. But they continue to have their bodies pointing in the girls' direction and seem to be very focused. At least their attention is very focused on the girls. They almost look like they're kind of surrounding them or creating a barrier around them in a way. Now, whether or not they're doing that to protect the girls or for some other nefarious reason, it's hard to say. So the conversation continues between Jack and Joe, and I think it would be really interesting to find out what these two were saying to each other. And I know Joe has posted some TikTok videos, which I'll link to as well, if you want to go in and listen to some of what he said. These were videos he posted to clear up any confusion about comments he might have made about Jack. But the girls are still waiting for their food, and now we're at the 3 hour, 52 minute and 14 second mark.
I'm doing extremely well. What's on good?
And you can see the girls are still just kind of chatting with each other. Jack and Joe continue their conversation. Obviously, they exchange quite a bit of words with each other. So it's, again, one can only imagine what they're talking about, but they're definitely getting into it here.
Love it. $23.
Possibly sharing stories. Okay, here comes that's Kaylee taking a selfie. Jack is still just kind of standing there, keeping himself warm.
Order 84. Thank you.
Again, nothing suspicious.
We do not have the scan one though. So like if you're trying to pay with Cash App and you have to like scan a thing, we don't have any sort of QR crap. How are you doing?
Sorry, good.
Oh, no. Good. Excellent. Sorry. What can I get you?
I mean, what's interesting is that Joe, who was talking to a lot of different people, seems really intent on this relationship he has going with Jack now. Ever since he's found out that Jack is connected to the girls, he hasn't left his side. He's pointed at the girls. He's given Jack a high five. Okay, now the girls walk off at the 3-hour, 53-minute, and 30-second mark. Jack makes a comment. He points his hand. Joe walks to the counter, and then immediately Jack just bails. And you can see he's initially going to go in the direction they went. They went off to the left, but instead he walks straight, and then he turns right around the corner. It's especially telling that the second that they walked off, he did the same, but he didn't follow in their direction, which does raise some suspicion. So as to what his involvement is at this point, I mean, we know that the investigators dismissed him early on in the process, although it's hard to say for sure. Nothing about what he did during the course of this video would lead anyone to believe that he had any ill will, and Joe appears to have gone on with his life, but that's really all we have to go off of at this stage, and people will continue to speculate until we have some answers. Thank you for watching.